Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on educators' role in preventing suicides amongst youth. This webinar is in collaboration with Safe Space India, and as we can all see, we have great educators with us who are going to share their views on the subject. These are coming from their own experiences, their own insights, and the way they have handled such situations. I'm sure we do not want our youngsters to go through this, but there are cases that have been happening. There are reasons that have been compelling this to happen. So we're going to look at it. But before we start, there is something that I would like to stress upon. This is a pre-recorded panel discussion to be released on Diwali. We encourage you to kindly watch this conversation, share your valuable comments and views. Your comments and views, our dear educators, would encourage us to continue creating such content and also give an opportunity for all of us to be a part of the series and exchange our thoughts, experiences and learning, thereby creating a suitable environment for our students and teachers. So let's get going. Welcome everyone. It is a pleasure to have all of you with us this evening. I'm sure today being the last day of before Diwali vacation, it must have been very hectic for all of you. Still, you could really give time. That's what is educators meant for. You somehow get this time, gather this time, make this 24 hours into 36 hours or 48 hours, and you give time for such valuable conversation. So welcome all of you, and thank you Madhuri Dadia ma'am for being with us as a special expert on this subject and help us understand much more about it in a very technical or clinical way, making us realize that we are on the right path. We need to pace a little more in our actions. That's what we require, and that is where we need your help. Let me give a backdrop. Formal education when began primarily focused upon the 3 R's. That's how we started, reading, writing and arithmetic, which was very necessary then. But over 3 decades or more, life has become more competitive and fast-paced because of the fast-paced growing technology and the globalization. This, globalization technology has made connectivity easy, yet distant among individuals. Today's situation across the globe is global. What happens in one part of the world is happening around us. Nuclear families, both parents working and growing knowledge, the exposure has added to our challenges actually. Even, when we look at the National Education Policy 2020 and what UN speaks under the SDGs, that is the Sustainable Development Goals, we're looking at creating 21st century learners who are to be enterprising, who are to be collaborative and inclusive. The holistic development that we speak about, the all-round development, is what is expected today. It is going beyond academics. The work pressure and updating has become a way of life for our teachers. In fact, we were talking about how teachers are trying to cope with the kind of challenges that we have. And we have to go through it. We have to take that because that's the need of the hour. And we are doing a very good job. But we need regular updating on that. We as leaders are also coping up with our pace. The students and teachers are working together. Our students apparently are getting exposed and have easy access to information. But my question is, do they really understand it? Or is it only information that is getting across? We really don't know. We are trying to understand them, yet information that is getting across, we really don't know. We find our students fighting their own battle, sometimes with us or without our help also. Do they need us? Are we equipped to guide them? What are they expecting from us? How are we communicating our expectations to them? Is there a gap between us and these 21st century learners? What has been evident that students are unable to cope emotionally and mentally, and thus have these, we call it suicidal tendencies. This of course includes influence of a lot of video games that have come up like PUBG. They are also the factors, and there are inabilities that allow students to be impatient. All this and more we will be discussing with our esteemed panel. I am Girish Dalvi, representing Open Forum for Principals, and I have with me today's 3 leaders you all and an expert who will be giving us this understanding and dealing with these questions. We have with us, let me introduce one by one, Mrs. Suma Das, Principal of Pawar Public School, Bhandup, who comes with a wide range of experience, specifically dealing with the metro students. We have Dr. Reshma Hegde, who is Director and Principal of Kapul Vidyanidhi International School. Her thesis, in fact, speaks about using life skills effectively to help students grow and develop holistically. Both extensively have the metro experience. And a third, expert leader that we have, Mrs. Kalyani Chaudhary ma'am. She is the one who not only knows how the metro students function, but also has worked with the 2-tier, 3-tier students at a leadership level, interacting with the parents and teachers. We also have our expert, Ms. Madhuri Dadia, who is the co-founder of Safe Space, working in the field of handling such suicidal cases for over 10 years. So I would like to begin, even before putting the question across to each of you individually. There are 5 questions that I would request if you could just, share it on the chat or write it on a piece of paper, and then we'll see how much we really, are with the information. So the 5 questions are, do we know how many numbers of students are studying in the age category of 11 to 18? That's my first question. The second is, how many teacher population in India do we have? The third is, how many school counselors do we have in India? Then, how many suicide cases do we find in India among youth? What is the number? And how many suicides happen across the world that are specifically, the number of youth that commit suicide across the world? Let's see what we have as the answer. I'm sure most of you must be having the right answers because we are all aware of it. Yes, the numbers would be, closer to the actual number. We're not looking at it to, be absolutely accurate. I'm sure you are already aware, but this is kind of a shock treatment to our audience also, to know that this is what is the number and this is what we are actually to be dealing with. So the number that we have, we can see that there are 230 million students that we cater only in India. And this count includes not just metros, 2-tier, 3-tier, but also the rural India. And how many teachers do we have? Only 3 million teachers who are catering these students. And to cater 230 students, plus this 3 million teachers, we have only 25,000 school counselors. Isn't this shocking? Where we require 1.5 million counselors minimum to keep the world standard ratio between the counselor and student. And this is where we are. And if you look at the number of suicides that happen in India, 0.2 million. And if you compare it with the number of suicides that happen across the world, we're almost contributing to the 25% of the community. 25% of the suicides happen in India. And this is, believe me, only the number of youth that commit suicide. What drives them to this stage is something that we really need to think, That's the question that we need to ask. Do we really need to even push them there to that extent that they think about this? They get introduced to this subject, this word itself. I think that is something that we need to address. And we are the ones who are the chosen one, I could say, to address this and make this world a better place to live. With that, let me come to our panel with the one common question that I have, and I would like to start with Suma ma'am. My question to you is, Suma ma'am, I'm sure this question is going to be very interesting for all of you. The question is, what is it that as educators we need to nurture from within for a student in order to allow holistic development? We know holistic development is required all down round exposure is required, but what do we need to develop from within for a student to accept this holistic development? Over to you, Sumangas.
Thank you, Girish, and good evening to all of you. I'm very happy to be here as part of the panelist. As far as holistic development is concerned, I think that is the term which we use now as often as I think it's something holistic development, all around development. These are terms that are being used by all educators. But what is it that we actually mean by holistic development and what are we trying to do? Long ago, Maria Montessori had said, education cannot be effective unless it helps a child to open up himself to life. I think that quote is more apt today. I feel what she said century ago, maybe in the last century, is more relevant today than in the 20th century, because no longer can we say that academic success alone is enough. We need to have all-round development of the child. When we say all-round development, we are talking about intellectual, we are talking about mental, physical, emotional, social. A child today will be ill-equipped to handle the challenges that he or she faces if he is just an academic achiever. 90% today is good, but 90% only, I think, enough. So how do we nurture the qualities that are required for the child to deal with the challenges that he's going to face in the 21st century? That is why I think rightly this question is very relevant today, because without holistic development today we find that children are ill-equipped. We have all these industries and the corporate people telling us that even the people who have achieved the topmost rank, they find it difficult to cope with the job that they have. They find it difficult to deal with teamwork. They are not able to work with their, you can say, their project, and in the project with their teammates. So what is it that we need to do? What is it that can ensure professional success and personal success? What is it that can make a child a happy child? A happy child where he learns with the joy of learning, not because he wants to get marks. So what are the things that we as educators can do? In our school, we tried one experiment. We do it often, I'm sure all of you have also done. The interdisciplinary approach we had used in one of the classes where we were teaching world wars. Now we told the children that this time we will ask your help in conducting this lesson. So with all the teachers of all the subjects, we sat together and had a plan. So for English, there was a poem on war. For maths, we taught about percentages, and the children were the one who did the research. So they happily went through the whole process, and they were the one who presented the entire, you can say, the causes and the consequences. But what we realized that as they were talking about the world war, one thing which we noticed was they were very negative. For example, when one of the kids mentioned that Hiroshima and Nagasaki was bombed. So they were very clear that now this is a country which will have lot of problems. So they said that how do we deal with it? Now they were asking questions as to how Japan overcame this. So here the teacher intervened. She spoke about how the human spirit is always strong in face of a crisis. How she demonstrated it with the example of Japan, which the child was a little worried about, though he knows that Japan has now risen from the ashes. So what she tried to explain to the child was that any calamity which happens is the end, but it is also a beginning. Just like today we have COVID crisis, nobody thought that we are doing this online webinar. Nobody thought maybe before April, before March, nobody heard of Zoom or Google or all these platforms being used. So same way, Japanese prove that whatever happens, if we have the spirit of never giving up, the spirit of saying that yes, we can do it. That is what they worked with, and for the first decade itself, they started working, and within a few decades, they were on par with the other developed countries as far as electronic goods were concerned. And after some time, they were the masters in it. So, what does it prove? So, we made the children understand that it is what you think in your mind that is the most important. Every time when we were going through the lesson, this was what we were harping on, that it is your mind which decides what we can or cannot do. Another example which we thought we should bring it to the notice of the children was that the concentration camps which were there, they were very much upset with the way the Jews were treated. And one of the boys was very fascinated with Hitler. He felt that Hitler was the person who took Germany forward. So in order to bring some sense into what all of them were saying, we did a role play. This was done last year. This time we just narrated the story. The role play was about a king who showed his compassion in this times of need, that is during the Second World War. Now all of us know what the concentration camps happened, how it happened, why it happened, and what was the result of it. So there was this country, Poland, where many of these people were taken into these concentration camps. Now, when they were taken to USSR, some of them could escape. So they put all the children and the women in a ship, and they said that whichever country gives you asylum, you can go and stay there. If we meet again, if we survive the war, we will meet again. Now the ship traveled to many places, but none of them gave them any shelter. When they came to India, India was ruled by the British at that time. They also did not give any permission. But there was this king who was very concerned about what was happening. Now he felt that this is something that he should not allow in his place. So he decided that he will change. How did he do that? He asked the British government to reconsider their decision, but unfortunately they did not do that. So here what he did was, he was Maharaja Jadeja. He invited that ship and to his dock at Rosie, and he allowed all those small orphans and the women to disembark. And he saw to it that all of them were comfortable, medical, food, everything. So what did we ask the children, what does it show? So they came up with the word compassion. India is known for compassion. India is known to welcome more people to our country. Everybody is treated as a guest, and we have this Atiti Deva Bhava and Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So that is what was demonstrated by the king at that time. Both these examples were used to convey to the children the importance of, one, in the Japanese case, not giving up, and in the second case, allowing no judgment against anyone. I think Girish used the word global. So it is also now when vanishing boundaries. We all are working in different places all over the country. We can deal with people all over the world. So the children also understood that whatever may be the circumstances, doing the right thing. Now here welcoming them was very important, and after India did that, such ships were also welcomed by many other countries. So India always stands as an example for others. So here the spirit of patriotism also could be brought about. So it is through these lessons that we try to bring about changes in the minds of the children. But yes, it is not easy. It's an ongoing process. I tell the teachers it is work in progress. It is always work in progress, and it is not something that we are achieving. So we use such methods so that we reach out to children through our academic as well as non-academic activity, and maybe reach out to some children who think that yes, in spite of all the negativity, there is always one area where we can work and make a difference. So in this way, we try to bring about holistic development in our children. Thank you.
Lovely, Subha ma'am. Beautiful. And India, in fact, has the highest resilience, They demonstrate
Yes.
that extensively. Sometimes it goes little more, but it's okay to be that way than otherwise. I would
Yes.
come over to Reshma ma'am. What do you have to add to this? Reshma ma'am, unmute yourself.
Suma ma'am, first of all, good evening. And history is my subject, and I was teaching other day World War only, so I could connect very well with what you are saying.
Yes.
So when I teach history, before I come to this question, I teach and I always compare Hitler with Gandhiji. I said Hitler adopted this technique and Gandhiji adopted this technique. But with Second World War, there was mass killing. Okay, so many people lost their lives, and Gandhiji through his non-violence medium, there was mass awakening. But this much death was not there. And who was at the winning point is India. And after the Second World War, nothing we can get it. So through war, never we cannot go through violent method. Always non-violence is the best method to approach. Okay. Coming to this question now, Girish, yeah. So it was so innovative manner you all taught the kids. I appreciate on that. Now coming to the question what Girish has thrown upon me is about the holistic development. Which techniques do we adopt? Okay, there are many techniques, and today I would like to highlight on few things. One is from the culture, the school culture itself is very human for us, and then that is open door policy. Like there is no much restriction. We do not have that boundary. We can say like every child also, because of our interaction with the kids so much, they can whatever difficulties they have. So what I have insisted my teacher that connectivity should be very good between a teacher and a student. And sometimes if they face difficulty with teachers also and they are not able to bond with the teacher well, they can very well connect with me or my HODs. Okay, very well. So the problem in the school area, if the child is facing any problem, it can be resolved in the school only. Then we have a reflection period. After all the 8 period is over, completed, I have 10 minutes of reflection period. So in this reflection period, if the child has any difficulty, they can connect with the class teacher. So as it is said, the class teacher is the second mother for the child. Okay. So in the first meeting, only opening meeting when the school reopened, I asked the teacher first, it is attitude building, then it is aptitude building. Okay. So attitude really matters. To give them a right approach is very, very essential. And there never should be a gap between a teacher and a child. We have to fill in the blank. So any kind of difficulty the child is facing, the child should be able to approach the teacher. And many a times I'm very thankful to Nityanjali also. The life skill workshops what they conduct in our school, it has a great impact. In one of the session I can relate, we had some session, I think it is of Nityanjali or something. We had a session on the relationship with the upon relationship only, and it was good touch, bad touch. No, I just remember now. It was a good touch, bad touch. So this child, started crying a lot when this session was going on. Suddenly she started crying this child is of 4th or 5th standard, crying very loudly. And what happened, like we called upon, then our counselor, we had 3 counselors in our school. So she could connect with the counselor, and then she said, like good touch, bad touch, when you all explained us, I could relate, my driver, sometimes he touches which I do not like, and I have never expressed it to my parent. Okay, and the parents are having so much faith upon him, so I never thought it is a bad bad touch, and if I tell my parents, whether they will accept it or not, like. So then we had to call upon the parent, mother and father, and then counsel and tell about it. And then they the child, they hug the child. We said, you it is very much essential that the child should be able to connect with you, and you accept whatever she is saying wholeheartedly. That gap should not be there. And then they realize that they were trusting that driver so much. So this child felt that if the child will say something, whether will they accept it or not. And then they realized, and we stopped. Otherwise it would have gone to some other level only. So we many a times through this Nityanjali seminar, some other seminar, life skill workshop, and every class, especially when the children hormonal change takes place after 5th standard and all, lot of mood swings are there in the kids and all. So at that period of time, my counselors also conduct workshop. We also recommend all the people from the eminent speakers also, we do call them, and it really helps. So this is one of the technique where the children, like even last week also, now today was the last session of Girish with our school. It was Girish, what was the topic from your
pathway to success?
Pathway to success, yeah. But it is pathway to success, but many things he has involved. About the mood, about the anger management, so many things, the emotional bent of mind, many things are covered. The topic is pathway to success. Pathway to success is not academic development only. There are many, as it is said, holistic development. So one point is that, and one more attitude is altruistic attitude. That is one of my mission, we can say. We want every child to develop the altruistic attitude. That is, they need to help others, and we should walk the talk. So therefore, what we do is joy of giving. Every Diwali, we celebrate joy of giving. Every class they adopt the sub-staff, a driver, a conductor, or the sub-staff, the auxiliary staff. So every class adopt one of my auxiliary staff, and then they give all Diwali foodies. And the main purpose, I said, you need to spread joy. Okay, it is in giving that your joy will multiply. So we do that, and the sub staff also, they feel so elated that they are respected. They sing some songs for them, and they are the chief guest for that day. Every class, so they are so they are the chief guest for that, and they perform for them, and then give this Diwali foodies to them. So what this year, now I cannot call the children, so I said I should represent something. So minimum whatever I could do, I brought each packet and distributed to them, and I said we should not stop any good practice. Little something better than nothing. Okay, so I started, I said this has to be continued. So in this, what we have to walk our talk. It is that students are not coming, so we stop joy of giving. And then for that, I said this time we will give joy of giving. The school will start joy of giving to different. It cannot be only in the terms of monetary or such, but it will be in terms of giving some, sharing some knowledge. So for 9th we did with Pathway to Success with Girish. So for 8th standard, some knowledge sharing is like added knowledge beyond the box. Was for 8th standard we have artificial intelligence. So development of the all technology part we are teaching. So every standard we are giving something. Some standard we have parenting workshop for the parent. So some additional thing the school has to give. So we want to walk the talk and helping grandparents. Today only we had virtual Grandparents Day celebration for pre-primary section. So from the base, it was a very busy schedule today for us, and then this workshop, many other workshops also I had to attend. So I think, this pandemic has brought us so good lessons. It has just taught us. One is like in every adversity there is an opportunity. I was not that tech savvy, and I've seen my children growing, evolving so much. So there are so many things that I can speak upon, add upon for the holistic development. As Gandhiji has said, by education I mean all-round development, and that is body, mind, and soul. Okay, so for body fitness level, what we are doing is 6:45. I have started for early morning. I connect with the parents virtually. So whoever parents are interested, my yoga teacher, she trains the parents. Parents who are interested. So yoga training starts, even I do, so that along with the parents. So 6:45 to 7:30 is a training with the parents. Yoga session is there, and 7:30 to 8:15 I have for grade 9th and 10th, and I made it compulsory. Each and every child need to practice yoga, and yoga will build their emotional bent of mind is really going to become very strong through yoga, through meditation, and through pranayam. So if it is where as it is said, healthy mind will dwell in healthy body. So both, if I have to see mentally, the child has to be strong, so the physical body also has to be strong. So it is Monday, Wednesday and Friday I have yoga, and Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday I have fitness session. So fast exercises where the child will exercise, they will perspire, and their negativities will go away. So I feel we should train the children, even if in this virtually we are connecting with the students, but over there also physical exercise matters. Many parents were opposing me, agitating, we do not want activity, but I was bent upon that at least thrice a week physical fitness class will be there. And I said, you should be the role model, you should be the brand ambassador of fitness for your child. So if the child is physically strong, I believe mentally also they will be strong. So that is my funda. Thank you so much, Girish.
Thank you, Reshma.
I hope I have covered everything. Yeah.
Yes. When Suma ma'am spoke, she emphasized more on resilience. And when we heard Reshma ma'am, it was more about building connectivity, be it emotional, be it physical. Connectivity with self and with others. And that's what we need to look at. The collective growth is something that she highlighted. Let me come to Kalyani ma'am. Kalyani ma'am has had the fortune to work with 2-tier cities also, as I said earlier, 3-tier cities, and now she's with the metro. And again, she's one of the highly, learned educators. I'm sure she also has some, new takeaway for us in terms of realizing what are the commonalities and the differences when it comes to holistic development of the students. So over to you, Kalyani ma'am. Kalyani ma'am, unmute yourself.
I thank my fellow panelists for having shared their views in such beautiful words. I believe that a child cannot be molded, but a child is a person who needs to be unfolded. And from the time that the child enters school, the unfolding begins. And also here, as Mr. Dalvi said, that it also differs from place to place. So if I were in another city, my upbringing of a student or unfolding of a student will definitely be different from what I would do in a metro. Now the basic things don't change. So if I am looking at holistic development of a child, Mr. Dalvi in his introduction said that we have been obsessed with the 3 R's, but times have changed and the obsession has also changed. And if we want holistic development in children, I look at the head, the heart, and the hands working together. So if we have to do that, we have to take care of each and every aspect of development: intellectual development, physical development, emotional development, social development, and spiritual development. And Suma ma'am has very beautifully brought out the concept of interdisciplinary learning. Reshma ma'am has mentioned how important it is to remain fit. Now, every child is unique. So you cannot give the same treatment to every child. So you're dealing, though the teacher may have 30 children in her class, the way she deals with each and every child has to be different. So we bring in the role of diversity there and respect for diversity. Now, a child who may be very intelligent can be a complete zero in sports. On the other hand, if a child is very good at sports, may not be able to do academics very well, or maybe not shine in academics, but that's perfectly all right. So, holistic nurturing of a child has to be from the child's point of view, as to not what I want the child to do, but what the child wants to learn and how the child wants to learn. So those hows are then amalgamated by the teachers, and a method is created depending on the classroom need. So first we look at the need of the child, and we then look at the need of the classroom and design something that will cater to each and every child's need. So I feel holistic learning can also be called a need-based approach. So in interdisciplinary learning, what will I do if I am a teacher in that scenario? So only the children who are interested in artwork should be given the artwork to do, because that is their I should say their dominant trait. So if I am good at writing, I have a flair for writing, I will then participate in the poetry writing section. And if I have a very logical mind, I will either go into demonstrating an experiment or data collection and data handling as part of mathematics. Now, to create that situation and scenario in our schools, in the Indian schools, is definitely a challenge because our ways are different. But with the national education policy coming in at the right time, when change has happened so fast, in 7 months we don't know where from we have moved. So everybody has taken a giant leap, and this is probably the most crucial time that NEP should be discussed and taken forward in the light of the current scenario, because NEP strongly recommends that every lesson has to reach the child in a way that the child understands. And to me, if I am able to attend to the child's need, for me, that is the holistic development of the child. I would like to talk about one of my students here from my previous institution. That boy was not interested in academics, and it was the teacher's job to find him before you entered the classroom, because he would vanish from the classroom. But the same child, you have an event, you need a sponsor, or you need to organize a donation camp somewhere, he would be at the forefront leading the activity. So if I were not appreciating him and not allowing him to do that, he would not come to attend the classes at all. So it is through the child's strengths that we have to bring him to attend to his weaker areas. To me, that is holistic development.
Beautiful, ma'am. Really nice. You have anything else to add, ma'am?
No, I give only these examples because they have touched me. Even today, that child has now become an entrepreneur. He's looking after his father's business, and he's the one who never forgets to wish me on any occasion. And I'm sure he's doing it with all his teachers. So I feel that we have to trust the child with his innate ability.
True, very true, ma'am. Very true. And here, I think, when you were speaking, the first name that came to my mind was Paulo Freire, the French educationist who spoke about, critical pedagogy. And I think that is what was reflecting from what you shared, your thoughts. I could just connect to that, how critically you could identify what could be the right way to approach to connect to the child in order to allow him to bloom, unfold, as you said, gradually. A beautiful take. Thank you so much. So we moved on from resilience to connectivity to critical pedagogy. Now I come to Safe Space, our expert, to please help us with her views on this. But before I ask, Madhuri ma'am to speak, let me give a little brief about what Space Safe is all about. It's a program that is run under Aita Doshi Services LLP. And the services that are provided are rooted in the research and are evidence-based because they believe in quality and hence are the only Indian mental health company. That's the uniqueness. They're the only Indian mental health company that follows a model for such issues and specifically suicide interventions. And they are ably supported by National Suicide Prevention Centre UK. From where they hold the IP for the Suicide First Aid Program, which is designed for the universal approach. Not just it focuses on UK children, but is equally suitable for students across. I will request Madhuri ma'am to elaborate more about herself, the Safe Space, and the organization that believes in your work and supports you into your endeavors. So over to you, Madhuri ma'am. And also, please answer us your views on the holistic development. What is it that we need to develop in the child from within to be able to take this holistic development? Over to you, Madhuri.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Girish sir. I think the question was literally a jackpot question that you asked, and I feel so honored to be in the company of Suma ma'am, Reshma ma'am, and Kalyani ma'am, because I think learning never stops, right? And there is always these are moments where you pick, and there always needs to be a student inside each one alive, and which is why note taking doesn't ever stop from what I picked from all the stalwarts here. Very, very humbly, I'm Madhuri Dadia. I'm a counseling psychologist. It's been 14 years that I was in the field of training, because when I did my master's, it was restricted to, let's say, schools. And I said, I want to kind of broaden my horizon, and what better way than to get into working with corporates, working with principals, teachers, parents. Safe Space as an organization works in the field of suicide prevention and mental health. We are essentially a training, education, awareness company, because we truly believe that all of us have the capacity to be educated and tutored on things that can sometimes overwhelm us. So all our subjects, all the trainings that we conduct is rooted in research and neuroscience. And which is why when we speak about every child being unique, right? And talking about what is that makes the child unique, whether it's in terms of the intelligence or in terms of behavior, very subtle differences there, right? When we speak about, let's say, connecting to the self and building an altruistic self, is this really the true self of the person, or is it because he's become a people pleaser because when he was born, that was a time his attachment was formed. His parents were too busy and he had to soothe himself to quieten down because there was nobody else to soothe him. So we believe that all of us are a result of our upbringing. While having said that, our parents did the best that they could and have brought us the best way they could. But going forward, that made me what I am today. And therefore, we say that even when we speak about suicide prevention, we truly believe that suicide is one of the most preventable deaths. And you, me, society, parents, if we are able to recognize a sign, rather than feeling overwhelmed and say, oh my God, don't act crazy. Oh, come on, you've said this time and again. You only say don't do it, come, I'm here, show it to me. You know, things like that come in as a response because we don't know what else to respond. And the most common way that we feel and the most soothing way that a parent would say, oh, you know, is very attention seeking. We want to tell you that there are signs that people give out. Sadly, we do not believe those signs. If we were to believe those signs, we would not lose one youth every hour in the country to suicide. And therefore, we say that as a company, we want to make India suicide free. And that can only happen when we train as many first responders as possible. So just to give you an example, let's say you and I were at a mall and we finished all the shopping, we put the bags in the car and we suddenly hear, you know, a fall. We're not going to just look away and say, okay, you know, whatever. We will make it a point to at least draw our attention to the person. We are not expected to be experts to carry a first aid kit too. But the least we could do is maybe call for help, maybe call an ambulance, maybe make sure that the person gets the help that's required. And this is exactly what we mean by saying that if you and I were trained on becoming first responders for suicide and mental health, while counselors are doing their best and they're exhausted themselves, they're recommended to have therapists for themselves as therapists. It's important that you and I can understand the subtlety and pick the sign and do the first aid, the first point of communication and connection, and then get the ball rolling. So, Girish sir, like I said, once again, I'm very, very humbled to be a part of this entire forum, and there's just so much to learn. And I truly believe that, you know, an educator's role in preventing suicide is paramount because when I talk about holistic development, when I talk about multiple intelligences by Dr. Howard Gardner, when I say that it's not just the mind, but it's the mind and the body and the hands working, all of this together needs to make sure that my brain is intact. And we need to know that all our brains kept developing until we were 21 years of age. While the world wanted us to get married and start a family, our brain was still developing. And we were expected to make sense of and make decisions of the chaos that was going on. And if I didn't have anyone who could help me make sense of the chaos, I would resort to moving on a continuum along and say, look, I don't think my presence is important. I don't think I matter. Last bench or gone doesn't matter to my teacher as well. So that is where we come in and we urge every single parent and teacher to be, trained on first aid. So there's adverse childhood experiences, what I'd love all of you to research on. And there's also a small free test available online where we are able to understand that there are adverse childhood experiences and more than a certain number means that the person has definitely gone through trauma. And if you and I are not trauma informed, we wouldn't know how to handle a person exhibiting certain kind of behaviors, and which is coming out as a cry for help and not attention seeking. So for holistic development, I believe that the brain inside, because the brain is neuroplastic, it has the ability to change and remold itself depending on the stress and the stressors, and therefore how we respond to it. If we understand that, our brain is then rejigged, regrown, redeveloped, and the person can actually lead a fulfilling life. And that will make a person really want to grow holistically, aim towards becoming more altruistic and, like Suma ma'am said, compassionate, because I understand where you come from. I've been through it. It's my journey too. And let's talk about it. So that is what will encourage then more inclusivity as well in the journey of education. Thank you, Girish sir. I think that went a bit too far.
No, not at all. In fact, I like the word that you use, stressors.
Yeah.
Which means we are all stressing each other, right?
Yeah.
So that is what has to stop first. That's the first step towards counseling. So my question to you, because I was listening to you, it just came up. It's so how do you think counseling will help? You said yes, we need to relate to them and
Yes.
make them feel yes, I know what you're going through. I've been through
Yes.
it.
Yes.
But how do you
Yes.
demonstrate it?
Correct. So Girish, I think before, we believe that all of us, when we speak about suicide, because that is where, I am a trained tutor by the National Center for Suicide Prevention. I'm also a suicide first responder. I've done a few interventions. We need to understand that suicide is not just an outcome. We see it as an outcome, but there is a lot that happens before that, and therefore it's on a continuum. If you and I were to understand that the person is only at the thoughts versus the attempt, he's progressed on the continuum, and therefore the SOS bell or the red flag, and therefore the reaction and the responsibility would change towards the person, right? But for that to happen, I need to understand that there are certain myths that we all carry, with a lot of respect for counselors, because I've done counseling myself. Suicide is never taught as a subject. It's never even spoken about in the curriculum. It's only spoken in terms of therapy and what therapy would work because ABC, right? Myths like those who talk about it don't really do it. Myths like, one attempt and they're never going to do it again. Myths like, how did I not see it coming? He looked so happy. She looked she was such a sweet child. What went wrong? Right? So there are so many myths like that around the subject. But a counselor first needs to, and all of us as first responders, as educators, need to understand that these are myths that can be busted, and there are logical reasons for that. Right? And once I'm able to identify the sign, if the child ends up saying, you know what, I have a pet, my parents can't take care of the pet, but you know what, you're my best friend, please promise me that you will take care of the pet while I'm gone. Most likely the student will end up saying, what? If I wanted a pet, I would have bought one by now. I ain't taking care of your pet, bro. That's not happening. Rather than saying, where are you going? What's the plan? Well, are you traveling somewhere? We miss those finer nuances as a part of communication, and there's nobody to be blamed, right? It's just that if I was more attuned, I would know that there is, these are the loopholes that I need to see through and look through. So counseling would definitely help when I'm able to recognize the signs. Research says that 25% of those who eventually die by suicide and not commit, I'll tell you why. For all those who die by suicide were under the care of a therapist, but they were never asked if they've done a prior attempt or no. So imagine you're under the care of a therapist, you're already in counseling, but you're not able to express it. The counselor misses that link and you lose the person when technically the person still could have been saved. So we do a lot of parenting workshops. In fact, so many of the doctors got themselves trained with us because they say, you know what, Madhuri, as lawyers, as doctors, we are very black and white. You come with a stomachache, we will give you a medication for stomachache. But if you're not able to understand that this stomach ache is happening because of sexual abuse, I am only giving medication, I'm not doing much. There is a gynecologist who especially wrote to us and said that I saw this girl 6 times in a year. And that's what rang a bell. Why would you come 6 times in a year to me for a UTI? What's going on? And that's when she probed further, only to know that she was being sexually abused at home by one of the abuser who was always at home. So sometimes we feel that homes are safe places for people. It may not be. Sometimes we feel schools are safe spaces for people. May not be. We at Safe Space believe you and I can become safe spaces for each other rather than making spaces safer for people. And yeah, that's my take.
Absolutely. It's a very intense episode that you shared. It really rang a bell into me also. I
Thank
think
you so much.
everyone, not just the child, but are in their own continuum. Somewhere we need to build and come out of that, and kind of then would be able to help each other. That's
Absolutely.
what. And more than help, it is actually sharing, identifying this, the second layer of the actual. We only see the tip of the iceberg, as you say. That I want to keep the pets, but I think it's about where are you going. That's what we need to learn to identify, and I think that's what we would be learning. But let me come to you again, but before that, let me go to Reshma ma'am. I have a question for you. As Madhuri ma'am said, homes are also sometimes not safe space, but let me come to home as a safe space, and I have my parents. Now, how do you think that, as parents, I learn or identify my child's behavior, act upon it, and also, will a school encourage parents to also communicate with them, not about only their child, but the friend circle or the classmates that he or she has, about them to the school, whether they are encouraged to observe something and come to you and speak about it, and how do you encourage that? How do you deal with it and encourage that? That's what is my question. Unmute yourself, ma'am. We are still into the technology learning thing.
So it is from Girish. To understand your question, that I have to speak about home front and the school front, correct?
So
Both the
I want you to tell us, educate us about how do you encourage parents to look at their child today in the given scenario, as to keep a watch, learn from them, observe the second layer, and also do you encourage your parents to come and communicate with you whatever they observe around the child in the school, campus, or that way? And how do you do it?
Okay. So for grade, especially 8, 9, 10, I conduct regular online workshop. Also, I'm also conducting motivational sessions and all. So, and as well as my counselor who is there, they I have primary counselors, secondary counselors also. So weekly, even they conduct session with the students. Or it can be on different various topics are taken for counseling. Okay, for this session. And as Girish sir said regarding parents' approach, so in this session, we do tell the parents that if any change in behavior is there in the students, then they need to report to us. And this, I could relate it immediately, because last week only, I had a parent whom I met along with his son, because the children who have behavioral problem, so it is not academic problem only the counselor or the remedial teachers are teaching, okay? So if any behavioral problem is there, also then they connect, the counselors connect with the children, behavioral problem, okay? So such children, they were under our list, some behavioral problem these children are having. So one of the parent, and this regular counseling session happens online also. These children who are under our special care, the counselors have been told even virtual session weekly once or twice they should have with their kids. So in one of this session, the counselor reported to me that ma'am, one of the parents said, grade 10, one of the child, he once or twice uttered the word that, I want to end my life. I'm fed up of it. I want to end my life. So the counselor reported to me. So I said, immediately you call the father and the son. Father reported. Then I spoke. The child was spoken by the counselor in the school. I called them in the school itself in this pandemic. This is last week only what it happened. And with the father, I started talking with the father. But when I started talking with the father, I could understand, because the father is working from home now. So whole day he is at home. The child is also at home. So what the father always wants perfection from the child. Everything in its place only. Nowhere here. Home is such that they can freely, the child can express. You cannot expect perfectionism at home. Okay. So this father always, the child says, why you're doing this, why you're doing that. And some children, they cannot just tolerate. And this child, we have to accept, is not very, very intelligent in 10th standard. Okay. So last year, his score was like in grade 9, he had failed in 1 or 2 subjects in the last sem also, and then I had to give re-examination, and he had cleared. So such cases we take into consideration. We understand this child is having some difficulty, and this first term also he got 57%. We conducted online exam, 57, and I appreciated him. What a tremendous improvement, Jenny! You have really done very well. Okay, but father said, "क्या है 57 ही मिला क्या?" So I said, "You have to compete. The child has to compete with himself. He has secured some 45%, which has turned to 57. Try to see positive about him. You're just telling ये करता नहीं है. You try to understand he has some difficulty. That's why he's not able to do." So I spoke with father, and then after speaking with the father, I said, "You have to come. Then you have to change your attitude, and you have to understand and relate with your child." And then afterwards, the counselor briefed me what was the conversation with the child, and I said, I called both father and son together and said, "Jenny, you're looking so smart today, and so nice, and you've done so well." I congratulated him in front of his father. I said, "Jenny, I'm sure you'll get 80 plus in this board examination." Father, क्या 80 plus? ऐसा आएगा इसको 80 plus? मैं बोली कि मैं गारंटी देती हूँ और आपको लिख के देती हूँ कि 80 प्लस आपका बच्चे को आएगा, लेकिन आप इंटरफियर नहीं करेंगे तो उसको खुद को करने दो. वो बहुत इंटेलिजेंट है और वो कर लेगा. वो 45 से 57 फर्स्ट टर्म तक आया है, और अभी एग्जाम भी पोस्टपोन हो गया है काउंसिल का, और हमें और 5 महीना तक है उसको पूरा ग्रूम करने के लिए. तो वो करेगा. आप हमें छोड़िए, हमारा काउंसलर डील करेगा और हम करेंगे, और उसमें काफी इम्प्रूवमेंट आएगा. Then he said, "Yes, ma'am, I can study independently. Please tell dad not to intervene again and again." I said, "Surely your dad had promised me he'll not intervene. And if you have any difficulty, you please ask." "Yes, ma'am, if I have difficulty, I'll ask my papa. He is very good in mathematics, and he will, if I have difficulty, I'll ask him. Otherwise, if dad is, I will study on my own. I want my space." So I asked the father, "Please don't intervene, and he will do it. He's very, very smart child." And I said, "Weekly, I will take your feedback, and whatever you're studying, you report to me. Okay, but I want you to be very strong and prove yourself to everyone that you can do much better than what you are right now." And he was very positive, and I'm taking feedback from my counselor regularly. How is he doing? So in such cases, in grade 10th also, this is 3 to 4 years back, what happened is, one of the child in grade 10, mother reported me, in every open house I meet individually each and every parent. What is the feedback in grade 10, especially every parent, because this is the time they have peer pressure and many things. So at that period of time, then parents say, one of the parents said, "एक महीना से मेरा बच्चा बुक पकड़ा ही नहीं, and 80, and always this child was above 80. So क्या हो गया अचानक, आप क्यों नहीं आए बोलने के लिए?" क्योंकि स्टडी लीव का टाइम था, प्रीलिम्स का, तो मैं नहीं आई, तो आप अभी बोले तो. And the child had not given exam also, first prelim. So that time they said the child is unwell they said. And then I said, what? Then she said, "वो पढ़ाई करती नहीं." बोले उसको क्या प्रॉब्लम? Then I went home. I said वो स्कूल आने को तैयार नहीं है. So I went home, spoke with her. Similarly, sometime sibling, what to say, comparison between the sibling. The elder sister was too good, so always she compared with the elder sister. So the child feels very low. She said, and she didn't feel like studying at all. So always I ask the parent, don't focus on academic thing. You have to, if any behavioral change is there in your kid, please report to us. We are there to cater to your problem. Immediately we'll come. And such instances, many instances we have, where we call the parents, try to bridge the gap between the child and the parent, and try to do this. It is very essential that with us the child is there for 5 to 6 hours or 7 hours, but with the child, with the parent is staying with the child whole day, 24/7. So the change in behavior can be identified by the parent immediately. So it's very essential that we continuously ask our counselors to train on this factor, and positive reports we have got on it. So I feel we are trying to do our best in this thing, and try to create a good bond between the parent and the child. Thank you.
Tell me one thing. This is one way that you ask your counselors to interact with parents. you yourself come forward, talk to them whenever they come to school. Is there any other mechanism that you have introduced? Because I know that you have that, where parents can directly come and, share if they have observed something in the school or about their child. So if you can
Yeah.
share that.
Yeah. So, as I said, we believe in open door policy. Like any difficulty, any change in behavior, or any problem, any challenge that a parent is facing, they are always approachable, and I am connecting with them 24/7. Even through PTAs also, sometimes it is difficult for them. I'm just giving you the instance of this pandemic right now. So they are not able to connect, but they are able to connect with the class teacher. And class teacher report to me, ma'am, so and so parents want to come and meet me. It can be, the challenge can be even monetary. The father is facing great difficulty also. Like for example, now 10 days back only, one of our child lost their father. He had twins children. They were in grade 10. So class teacher came to know, so she immediately reported to me. The mother was in so much stress. So at that period of time, we had to console her, give her relief, and immediately we connected with her, and we said, you don't worry about the fees. Your father is affected, means your husband, you lost such a mass loss. We will take care of your kids, all the studies, academic. So each and every class teacher, I tell them, subject teachers, whoever are teaching, please give individual attention to the child, and spoken with the kids also. So it is not necessary, because this loss at that period of time also, it is very much essential for us to be with the child. Okay, and during this pandemic, we have lost around about 6 to 7 fathers. We have lost in this pandemic. Okay, so in that case also, we connect with the child, or any other difficult situation, monetary problem also parents are facing. And the class teacher, I have asked the class teacher every open house to speak with individual parents, and whatever difficulty they have in the open house, even one-to-one, even in this pandemic, whatever difficulty they have and they are not able to resolve the things, the class teacher connect with me immediately. So I am available with the class teacher. So our rapport between the teacher and me and the parent, all the stakeholders, is very good. So we are able to connect and immediately respond to that situation. That is very much essential, to respond immediately to the situation.
Right.
And things get resolved. And one more thing is peer mentoring we are having, especially for higher grade peer mentoring. Children who are weak in studies and all, what is happening is, they are not able to express openly to the class, to the subject teacher. And one peer, like whoever is best in the subject in 10th, for example, for mathematics, then peer mentor for mathematics is different for social studies. So 7 to 8 peer mentors are there, and children who are weak in those subjects, they cater to them. And peer mentors are able to resolve the other problem or any other challenges that the child is facing. So collaboration, peer mentorship. So all this is working out well till now, touch wood, and things are going on hand. Yeah, thank you.
Reshma ma'am, I wanted you to share the non-formal approach that you have in your school. Let me share that with you openly.
Okay.
Reshma ma'am has her reception staff, the two of them. One is a Christian, I forgot her name.
Jamila, Mabel.
Jamila.
Yeah.
Mabel, right.
Okay.
So she shared with me that she was instructed by Reshma ma'am that whenever any parent comes to you to say anything, or if you find something, come and inform me quietly. I will come out and then talk to that parent and get it out from him or her what is bothering. So that's working very well for the last 6 years. She's able, and they keep a record of it. But this is kind of an informal way that Reshma ma'am is trying to create an environment where her receptionist is kind of the agony aunt, where everybody can come and express whatever they have to. And she is very smart that way. She quietly goes into ma'am's cabin, tells it in her ears, and after some time you'll see suddenly Reshma ma'am is out for a stroll or out for a round, but actually she's come for that problem, to address that problem, that discussion that is happening with the mothers, specifically the primary section mothers, the 3rd and 4th standard mothers. So that's something that I was very keen that Reshma ma'am shared. But of course, this is out of the box activity, so but it is a very good takeout. How to use your resources.
Yeah.
Build on to that. Let me come to Suma ma'am. Reshma ma'am said that yes, they encourage parents to speak. Parents do have an option, but she also simultaneously working on creating peer studies. She's also trying to encourage teachers to, build on their capacity to identify. I have heard something about your school, the way you approach, about how encourage teachers to look at these things and handle these things. So please share with us how you approach. I mean, how you use your teachers fantastically to cater to this concern, this observation that you do about children through teachers. They are your cameras. Unmute yourself, man. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Girish and Reshma. Wonderful way you're handling parents. Really hands-on approach. The principal being available always is really nice. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So as far as teachers are concerned, specifically in this pandemic, it's a real challenge. They have already accepted one challenge, that transition from offline to online, and they have come out as winners. Now we are working towards making education engaging and interesting, and that is the way we thought was to move forward. Now what I shared with the teachers and what we are doing together is a few things which may help us to I would say to deal with the situation as it is now. So we have tried one area which we thought that in the online interaction we don't have that kind of bonding which is required. So we find that initially children were not that interested. So we teachers and all of us, we had a brainstorming session, and then we thought we will introduce any activity at the end of the period. So that worked out very well. So like to give you an example, growing a plant and sharing. Now for everyone in the bio lesson they had done that, but for everyone it was not possible. So some students, they kept a journal and wrote about how the plant was being nurtured. Then a few others looked at what were the facilities that were required, what were the, you can say, various what would you say, insecticides, pesticides, not to that extent, but whatever medicinal aspect was there to that plant, that also was added to it. Apart from that, we found that children were coming late to online class, and unlike school, we couldn't punish them. So again, what one teacher told me was that we will try a new method, and she introduced what we today all know as virtual tours. And she took the children to London Museum. 1 week she did that, and there you had Charles Babbage, his brain. And there were 7 floors, and children were so fascinated using the lift online. And it was such fun, and without realizing, we found that before the class timing, they were all waiting in the waiting room. So that was one challenge we had, which we tried to overcome by creating interesting classes. The second method we used was interaction time. We had interaction time during physical classes, but because of screen time, we reduced it. But we realized that, children were not able to express themselves generally. So even the student council requested us that please have it, because teachers were trained by the counselors during the May holidays to become good listeners. See, that was an attempt. I'm not saying that they were totally perfect, but yes, a rigorous training was done. And after that, children in the interaction time were allowed to speak about whatever and any kind of issues that they want, general issues, anything. And to our surprise, there were some major issues which came up. Then we took them to the breakout room and we dealt with that individual child. So it really helped. What we safe spaces were saying that not to take them to the brink, So we were nipping it in the bud. So I'm sure I hope we don't reach that stage anytime. But yes, we could handle many issues in there. And sometimes we found that only the teacher was not enough. So there we had the counselors also intervention, and it helped in solving the problem. So we created what I should say safe zones for children to express themselves and issues to be resolved. The third idea that I shared with the teachers was about empathy. That today, specifically in this scenario, when children are cooped up in their house, teachers have to be very, very empathetic towards whatever they're happening. They have to identify whatever problems that they were facing. And here we took the help of the student council also, and together we tried to
I think,
call had come.
yes.
Late to class, and in spite of all the kinds of intervention, she was not ready to heed to our request or even to our advice. So then with the peer group and some of the teachers, we further spoke to the child in the breakout room, and we realized that she took this as an opportunity to, actually she thought she was sick and she used to get up late. Parents were too busy to intervene. So this was the scenario. Then I think with a lot of see, it is when I'm saying it is like in a day it happened or in a few days, but a lot of discussion, and we had a lot of you can say anxiety on her side. So that took a lot of time, but I'm very happy that afterwards the child now is quite cheerful and is very happy to come back to school. So that was something very nice. So these small measures do help. And then in certain cases we found that this network issue is a very nice way for children to say that I can't attend the class. So there was this boy, always used to come in the morning and then always used to write network issue, or when we call him later, he used to keep saying that. Now here we were really worried because he just stopped attending school. So here we started collaborating with the parents. So we spoke to the parents, and we know that he is a football player, and then the parents also said that they are also finding it extremely difficult to deal with him, because he's just not wanting to stay at home. He wants to play football, or he just watches matches on football. So here also what happened was, then we had to change the way of talking to him. We spoke to the parent, and we also devised ways where he can use his physical energy. What we were talking about, holistic development, physical energy being most for teenagers, it's one of the most important areas to vent out. So the corridor of his building was used, because that time the lockdown was very strict, and though they were allowed to go down, the parents were a little worried. This was in the month of June. So we used those spaces, and we also told him that you come when you want to, and we didn't pressurize him. So again, it was a constant flow of intervention from both sides. We also used the librarian. He's a very voracious reader. So we spoke about football players with him. The librarian used to have sessions with him about football and how most of them used to balance, and if he has to even become a football player in India, what are the challenges. So over a period of time that worked. And see, these are, as I said in the beginning, that this is work in progress. These are small areas where we use these methods. I'm just giving you a few examples. These are the regular methods that we use in all our classes. Then one more area that we look into is, just like I started with creating interest. We always believe that children will come to an online class if it is a fun-filled class. So then again, when we saw that specifically for the higher students, the number used to vary. If we had 40 students, it used to be 30, 25, 30. So we were really worried. So then we started using various methods to make it enjoyable. One teacher shared with me, I told them that I give you full freedom to use whichever method, but you have to elaborate on it and share with your colleagues so that they can also use it. So one method she used was she allowed them to use a paint app where they used to scribble. Now there was strict instruction, they were not supposed to use it. So annotation was something which they never were allowed to do when the teacher was teaching. So first 5 minutes of the class was given to annotation. So they used to scribble everything, and you can say the condition was they have to show it. So we were clear that they would not go beyond what we expected, but they were very happy that yes, this teacher is giving us this opportunity. And we also realized that they are native citizens of digitalization. They are native in that, and we are the immigrants. So we also use them in collaborating as far as teaching is concerned, and they were very good in it. And many of the children brought out so many apps, and they were on par with the teachers. So they were very happy doing that. So that also worked.
Suma ma'am, I think your teachers have been really working extensively and very creatively, and the way you have motivated. I know one exercise that she does, which I was sharing with Kalyani ma'am earlier also. She has this chai time with her teachers one by one. Every day 2-3 teachers she keeps speaking. This has been her practice since the time she's taken over Pawar Public School, and that's how. But I have to come to Madhuri ma'am when Suma ma'am was talking about so many things that teachers have been doing. It's a lot of work. It's not easy for a teacher to balance, her own academics that she needs to compulsorily complete. At the same time, observe all this. Think about, even Reshma ma'am kept saying that we encourage teachers to observe all these behaviors and all that. How do you think teachers can actually manage this? What do you think? How should they be able to balance this out? Doing their actual work, that is teaching, but with that they need to support it, otherwise that learning is not complete. So how do you think one should go about it? Over to you.
So I must absolutely appreciate the fact that teachers in both these schools are of course doing a phenomenal job, and the fact that there's a healthy collaboration already between the teachers and the students, and that the principals themselves are going this far to ensure that there is comfort to the child is very important, and it's commendable, and sincere appreciation to all of you, and your teachers, if you could convey that on behalf of us. Having said that, Girish sir, how many, like we said, from the 230, let's take this a little off track, okay? Let's take the example of an aviation industry. Now, the National Crime Record Bureau says that there are 290,000 suicides that are reported in a population of 1.38 billion. That number by itself doesn't fit well, because where 1.38 billion and where 290,000, we've not even taken into account the farmer suicides and all of that. Chalo, certain unreported suicides which are 5 to 25% more. Let's compare this to an aviation industry and the safety standards, therefore. Everywhere where we need to fly, where the moment you reach the airport till the moment you reach the destination airport, how many safety checks do you and I go through? At every step, right? Let's say all of that is done, you have to board the aircraft and they ask you for a boarding pass and you're like, oh my God, I just had it. 1 second. Will the crew members say, okay, Mr. Girish, never mind, you remember your seat number, we'll let you in? Will they do that? They'll never do. They will send you back all the way, doesn't matter your age or whatever. You go back, get another boarding pass and come back. Acha, this is only about the crew members. Even the ground staff, if there's a freak wire coming out, will they say, it's okay, just cut it, it's just an extra wire? They will make sure that the flight is delayed, but they will trace the freak wire back. Why am I telling you this? I'm saying in a population where there are so many students, there are just that many teachers and there are just that many counselors that are never going to be enough. Are we sure that all of them will be able to go to this extent to genuinely support? Yeah, they may be willing to, and there is no two ways about it. They may have the intention, but do they have the skill sets? Okay, it's one thing to intend to do something and another to have the skill set to learn and reproduce. And I feel that is where there is a huge scope where we can empower them a little further, and this will not only help them for their own classes, it will help them for times to come, whether in the building, whether their own children, whether it's the family, or whether it's any other school throughout their tenure that they go to. And that is where I truly believe that every teacher also may need an outlet to spot that, hey, this is where I think my response may not be okay. 1 in 4 children today have anxiety. 1 in 5 today are diagnosed with depression. And here we are talking about clinical diagnosis given by a psychiatrist and not just, usko depression hai. Who told you this? Oh, nobody. I think it's depression. How? Do you know? So fever is fever, but fever in COVID will give you chills versus fever in malaria will give you different chills. But it's still fever, but you and I can't diagnose this. We have to run tests, right? So it's important. All of us have thresholds. Our counselors are humans, our teachers are humans, principals are humans. We all come from different backgrounds. Being trained on this will actually make you feel more liberated, because then you are sure shot that this person needs additional help. Principal ma'am, you know what? These are the 10 things we did. Having said that, I think there's medical intervention that's required because I sense hallucinations. Because I sense that there is some sort of abuse going on, something is not right. So I'll give you an example. There's a principal who's done this program. There was a student who kept complaining that he kept dreaming of needles falling from the sky and needles hitting him. His mother came back to the school saying, what's going on? Why is he talking about needles poking him? The principal happened to take rounds and saw the student rather aloof and absolutely disengaged. Called him, spoke to him, only to realize that actually in attempts of suicide, he's been swallowing needles. And that is where they reached out to us. We did the intervention, put him to a psychiatrist. Today he's on therapy and medication. Now imagine a principal of a school that has X number of students having to spot this one freakish incident. Right? And India has 50% of the youth population, and we are proud about it because we are the only country in the world that has maximum youth versus other countries where there is maximum old age population. So which means that we have more potential to contribute financially. But if the youth today isn't okay, and if the journey of the youth isn't plotted and well understood, if you don't go back to the trauma, if you don't go back to, instead of punishment, let's try and see how else do you resurrect the person and figure what's wrong, chances are that this youth actually will become a better contributor tomorrow. I hope that's answered your question, Girish
Yes,
sir.
but I also wanted to know, because you kept saying the program. I would like to really know what the program is all about. I mean, what is that technicality that the teacher can acquire? If you can just highlight a little.
So we have this.
It's going to be huge, but you can just tell us in a nutshell.
No, so it's very, very simple. So idea here is to empower people to make sure that they're able to spot the signs of distress and respond with a caring, compassionate conversation. Now, this signs can be spotted by a parent, can be spotted by, when you have your PTM. One mother can spot it for somebody else's child if she's well enough trained. A teacher can spot it. It's called the Suicide First Aid Formal Certification. This is a certification that's not just given because you've done the program. There is an assessment. So we train you for 3 hours virtually in recognizing the signs, spotting the signs. How do you have that caring conversation with a person? What do those signs really mean? We can go a step further where we can have role plays and figure what we can do, and therefore what does the science really talk about there. And then there is an assessment. The assessment is only to understand if the concept of suicide is really well understood. And after that, there's a certification that's given, which is co-signed with the National Center for Suicide Prevention, UK. So this model, like I said, has been used for 20 years in America, in UK, and they get credit points. It's a qualification. So it's literally a compulsory in every school. But when we speak to them, they are so supportive because they understand that India's journey to mental health is so different, unlike other countries in the world. They are much more open. There are many more therapists. For them, having a therapist is like having a family doctor. For us, having a therapist is like, oh God, don't tell
You
me.
got mad.
Yeah, are you crazy? Right? The parents will say, oh no, my son is not stupid. Why does he need a psychiatrist? But you've got to understand that your psychiatrist is a doctor. It's just that his expertise is here and not the heart or the stomach or the spine or the bone. You know? So that's crucial. So we actually train principals, teachers, parents on spotting the signs, on seeing how you use the brief intervention model to carry on the conversation and get the person the help that's required.
Oh, lovely. I would personally then have a chat with you on this, science and all that later. But let me come to Kalyani ma'am.
She's been quiet for quite some time. I want to hear from Kalyani. So
Kalyani ma'am is
And
going.
Girish, one thing, I just want to go for this course for empowerment.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely. But Kalyani,
Thank you, ma'am.
come to you. We have been talking about students, from a parent perspective, from a counselor's perspective, from a teacher's perspective, or a leadership perspective. But what about the student? What is he made of, and how does he think? So my question is that, we all know that a student is a vulnerable being. He or she, as you said, keeps unfolding gradually, which means he's getting to know things gradually. He's not experienced. All his experiences are the first time experiences. How do you think, you can, help them identify that these signs much before time, so that they don't get into these kind of thought processes? And how do you help, just as Reshma ma'am spoke about peer, handling, guidance. I'm sure you have some, approach that you have been doing in your earlier school, where you bring the students together, form their community, and encourage them to have a dialogue. So what is it that we want to know from you, please? And you can also talk about, I heard that, in Thane, when you came to Billabong, you started some kind of initiative with your teachers also in this form. So even that, if you can please share, that would be great. And then last question, I will come to Madhuri ma'am again. We'll close on that, and then, we'll, because what is happening, I didn't see the time, but I got into the conversation, and when yesterday I was speaking to Suma ma'am, she said, oh my God, I have to answer 5 minutes long. And today, we all, not just Suma ma'am, but we all could go on, and we still have so much to share. But I will have those sharing done in the next session also. We'll continue. But over to you, Kalyani ma'am.
Thank you. Yes. So in a school scenario, the student is the center of all activities. And as leaders, as educators, when we are drafting policies, I think alongside every other policy that we have for admission, for transport, for safety, we need to have a mental health policy of the school. And the mental health policy should equip both the teacher, the student, and the parents to come together and understand the child. Now, this is very important because these signs that we talk about, which show up at a much later stage, they actually start at a very early age. Very early age. So I had a student, an extremely intelligent student, but highly destructive. Highly destructive. And because he was intelligent, what he used to do was that the moment he had understood what the teacher was trying to explain to the rest of the class, he would start spitting at others. He would pick up somebody's pencil box and throw. Because he was not being given that attention and he was not interested in what the teacher was trying to explain to the others because he knew about it. And the teacher felt that this child was always disturbing the class. So at that point, intervention was required first to understand why the child is behaving in this manner. And parents were polished parents. Gentleman and lady, I must say. True gentleman and lady. And their child behaving in this manner was not acceptable to anybody. So when I was informed of this, I started going to the class. I used to sit there as an observer, and the moment he started the tantrums, I would just hold his hand and bring him to my office. And there we sat down and started chatting. So I tried to build a connection with this child. And in all this process, I got to know from the child that he loved dancing. Now I got hold of the dance teacher. And now he is your baby. You have to train him whenever he wants to get trained. It's not that this is not your class time. This is not your daily period for that class. No, I will not take those as your reasons. So whenever I feel that he needs to vent, I will bring him to you. Because after a few days, he would get bored chatting with me also. So his place was the dance room. At that time when he was terribly upset, because he also probably didn't understand that he was behaving in this manner. So, and I knew that he will take care of his studies even though he was only in grade 2 at that time. Because he was intelligent. So I started doing this with him. And the dance teacher would happily include him with any of the classes. And since he loved dancing, he started enjoying those sessions. And he was also away from the class. That made him very happy. So that continued for some time. And then we started observing some changes in him. Because that is the point when he started missing his friends, probably his friends who were in the class doing something and he was out. He started realizing that I was being ostracized in this manner because he was very intelligent. So then he started behaving in a manner that was more acceptable. So I feel that this could have, if we had ignored this and if we had blamed the child and reprimanded him, it would have taken a different turn. So we have to get connected to the child, understand what the requirement is, why a child is behaving in a certain manner, communicate with him and in a way show that we care for you. If we are not using any of these C's in the process, then I think the child will fall out. Another student, I was reported by the counselor that this child is trying to self-harm. The child is carrying a piece of blade in the pocket, and in the washroom, this act has already been attempted. So it's an alarm. So I thought, okay, let me keep the child out of this for some time and discuss this with the friends, the child's friends. So I just had a discussion with her friends about general things. I did not even bring the child in. I just wanted to check the classroom hygiene. So there I found that groupism was happening and this child was being left out. She wanted to be desperately connected with a friend who was not willing to accept her as a friend. So I got to know of this. Then I checked with the parents if there was something happening at home which we were unaware of, because they come from diverse backgrounds. The parent also did not, the parent said that no, nothing of that sort has happened at home, and at home she is quite normal. Then when I brought the child in, she confessed that she felt bad. She wanted to make a point to the friend that if that child is not going to be her friend, she is going to harm herself and eventually make her friend. But she probably did not understand that this can lead to something else. So then we started talking to the child, started explaining things to her, spoke to the group that surrounded her, and gradually I think we saw her coming out of this pattern. Again, it is a long drawn process, and if we rush, we lose the battle. So we have to be extremely patient with this kind of children, these kind of children, and also the people who are surrounding her. So to make it easy for the students to develop a communication channel, if they are unable to communicate with friends, if they are unable to communicate with the teacher at times, because all teachers may not be equipped with the skills to deal with this situation. They can report, they may spot, but how will they deal with it if they are not given that time and skill? So I started with breakfast with the students. So every day from a grade, send me children who don't gel with each other and who have some differences or who show signs of which may keep them out of the league. So that was started by me for the students. Also, every child has the right to enter and speak with me. Every child, without permission, they are allowed entry and they can spend as much time as they want with me. So in this process, what I have seen here, because it again depends on the socio-economic condition of the family or of the school, the parents that the school caters to. So in another city where I worked, we could deal with these kind of issues in a different manner and easily. Whereas in a metro, I feel the city itself puts a lot of pressure, creates a lot of pressure on the child. It could be anything. It could be that my neighbor has a certain thing. It could be that my father is unable to give me something and my friend has it. So when we have a close discussion, and that is where the circle time, I trained the teachers with circle time activities, where they are just sitting with the children and discussing an issue. It may not always be an issue. It could just be a topic. Then we created the Ideate and Innovate Club, where they have to come up with a pressing idea, which is probably disturbing all of them, discuss with each other and find a solution. And if that solution is a viable solution, then it would be implemented in every section of the school. So circle time works very well with younger children, and Ideate and Innovate works very well with children between the age of 11 to 16, 17, 18. Because then they feel a sense of pride that they are collaborating and creating a solution to a pressing issue.
Absolutely correct. Beautiful.
Also, when it comes to the teachers, equipping them with the skills, I think the foremost skill is being a good listener. Suma ma'am, I think hats off to Suma ma'am, because she ensured that all teachers were trained for this. And this is the foremost requirement. If you have to communicate, you have to first listen to the child. Create that invisible connection where the child feels free to come and tell you anything. And the same thing has to be done even at home. Give that space, create the space with the child so that the child can discuss anything and everything with you in the process. So once that is developed as a habit, that has to be a habit, become a habit. Very young mothers, they say that, the child keeps talking and disturbing all the time. The child takes too much time in explaining things. I get tired of listening. So my request is to every parent, please don't get tired of listening. These are the best sources of understanding what your child is doing or how your child is thinking.
Absolutely, Kalyani ma'am. This listening is very, very important.
And also a reflection time. So in our school, we have something called Shant Samay. 5 minutes of reflection time for every child every day. So we ring a bell and we tell them, just don't do anything. Whatever you have done, it could be, just before lunchtime or maybe early in the morning. It depends on how we want to create that time. You just sit down, take a piece of paper and reflect on what is disturbing you the most, or what if you are seeking answer to something. So they write it down, and once it is written down, it is out of the system, and they probably understand why they were doing it, after they have deliberated on it. So quiet time and reflection time is extremely important for self-awareness.
True, very much. That's this self-awareness is very crucial, because if I know myself very well, I think I will be able to express myself and also communicate that better for others to help me also. In fact, it will help them to understand me better and guide me very well. While I was going through all the discussions, thank you, Kalyani ma'am. It was beautiful to listen to you. My key takeaways from the entire discussion is about what Kalyani ma'am said is classroom hygiene. That word itself is so beautiful. It explains a lot of things, and that you spoke about school mental health progress or status, or the
Policy.
assessing policy.
Yes.
A regular assessment of that is so important. When Reshma ma'am spoke about the open door policy, it's a mindset that you cannot have that. But if you want to, if you desire and are ready for it, then you prepare yourself accordingly. So that was another takeaway that I had. And when Suma ma'am spoke about this resilience and the way that she motivates her teachers to come up with this innovation, and her work in progress, that is something we educators need to realize, that we cannot be with absolute solutions. It's always going to be work in progress, because we are going to have different lot of generations coming under us, and it will never be work done. It is always work in progress. And Madhuri ma'am, when you spoke about that if everybody is bogged down with a lot of things, you have your own personal struggles that are going on, or your own interests that you're exploring, and with that, if you have to manage this, you need to be well prepared. And if you're technically very sound, if you're aware of the technicalities, it makes it much easier for you to speak about it, to conclude based on the facts, not just mere your own assumptions. And that is huge. People can make random statements, And that also is one of the reasons why others get disturbed with these random statements. To be able to identify that. And I'm really amazed that you said you can help us learn that in 3 hours. I really need to know that. How do you do it? I know you can go on and on explaining it here itself, but definitely I will take. And as Reshma ma'am said, we would like to know about the course. I will get back to you.
Yeah, we would like to. Yeah.
It would be great if I will appeal my committee of Open Forum principals to organize it. In fact, we were
Perfect.
planning to do something in the month of November. I think this is one of the great initiatives that we can take. And this entire discussion has been so enriching.
Thank you, sir.
I feel like we cannot stop. We can go on
Yeah.
and on.
Yes. No,
Yes,
can I
Kalyan.
add one
Yes,
more point?
yes, ma'am. Yes,
I
ma'am.
think teaching children to take no for an answer is important.
Yes.
Absolutely.
As
Bingo.
indulgent parents, I think, and with indulgent and being able to afford things, we have become very affordable parents. So I think saying no to things that are not age appropriate or not required is definitely important, and also dropping expectations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On a
These
similar
things
note,
are found that they are the root cause of any problem.
yeah. In fact,
Just
when I was-
1 minute. Just to add to what Kalyani is saying,
yes, ma'am.
she said saying no, that is mollycoddling. Instead of giving material things, if they give their time to children, that will make a huge difference.
In
Absolutely.
fact, this is a quote that I could find from the co-founder of Safe Space, which I really liked, and I thought this would sum up. It's very similar to what we just ended up with. I think it speaks volumes when you read it. Thank you so much, Safe Space, for having this
Thank you, sir.
interaction. It's been very difficult to get Madhuri ma'am, and sometime I will get Nyanya ma'am also to listen to her, because your 10 years of experience in this particular space, the safe space, and the idea of not giving the space as a safe space, but making your time as safe space, and the interaction is something that is huge. We will think over it and come
Thank
back
you,
to you.
Thank
So
you, sir.
thank you everyone. Thank you, Kalyani
Thank you.
ma'am, for that precise and that demonstrative sharing that you had. Thank you, Suma ma'am. First of all, thank you for accepting the last minute request.
Thank you. I thank you for inviting me to such a
No,
panel
no,
discussion.
definitely. And Reshma ma'am
And,
also.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Girish. Thank you so much. I had to just leave from school.
I know. You're driving back, but still you are a part of this, and it really made a lot of learning experience. Suma ma'am, you're saying something. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wanted to thank Madhuri ma'am also, because I feel we are amateurs in front of her
Oh,
experience.
please. No way. No way. I've already written 5-page notes from all that you
Oh yeah.
know.
All of us are expert in
Thank
our own
you.
space. So she
Absolutely.
has. So,
Absolutely.
but Madhuri ma'am, you have to enjoy this glory also. Coming from such
Yes.
stalwarts, appreciation
Thank
you should
you.
take. That
Thank
is
you.
something that I have started
Thank you.
learning. Take the appreciation, because that is
Thank
going
you.
to help me learn. That will help me remember
Absolutely.
this situations and the learnings out of these experiences. Thank you once
Absolutely.
again to all of you. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Girish sir. You've been a phenomenal moderator and a host. I think the way you've picked up and connected
Yes.
just makes it so
Thank you so much.
Yes,
That
it was.
to you, Girish and Suma
Yeah.
ma'am, as well as
Thank
Madhuri. Yeah,
Yes.
Wishing you all a happy
thank you
Diwali.
so much.
Thank
Same
you,
to
each
you.
one of you. It
Happy
was a
Diwali.
wonderful, enriching
Yes.
experience.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Yes.
Reshma ma'am, Suma ma'am, and Kalyani ma'am. It was
Thank you for your time, all of you.
speechless.
Thank you, Madhuri ma'am.